Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dyslexia Life Hacks Show. I'm your host, Matthew Head, and this episode is part one of a two-part series with Dean and Bodhi Bragonier of NoticeAbility. NoticeAbility is a non-profit helping students with dyslexia thrive by identifying their strengths and building up their self-esteem. Bodhi, who's currently a teenager and the subject of this episode, is going around the world speaking to people about dyslexia from a youth perspective. His dad, Dean, is the founder of NoticeAbility and is the subject of next episode. And his mum, Sally, are both dyslexic. And they say that they've given birth to a purebred dyslexic child. As always, I will put links to things we talk about as well as links to NoticeAbility in the show notes, which will be available at dyslexialifehacks.com/podcast. Welcome to the show, Bodhi.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Where I wanted to kick this conversation off with is that I heard and I have read that you were a bit of an inventor in your sort of, I'm going to say youth, but you're not actually that old as it is.
Yeah, no, I love to travel around the world and explore and find new fun activities and meet new fun people. And this has been an absolutely fantastic experience to do just that.
Yes. So what was your invention you come up with when you were a child?
Yes, invention. So the first kind of thing that I created using my dyslexic ingenuity was something that I coined pocket change. And it was small slips of cloth that were pockets that could be magnetized to any article of clothing to then maximize storage capacity of that piece of clothing. Yeah. And obviously that didn't get very far considering I was about 6 at the time, but it was the first time that I came up with that kind of idea and my dad took advantage of that. We went on kind of a business making website. And by the age of 7 or 6 or 7, I had a working business plan for something I dreamed up.
Wow.
That was something that both gave me a lot of confidence in my own dyslexic strengths and allowed my dad to create what we do now, which is NoticeAbility.
Yeah, nice. What were you trying? What was the problem you were trying to solve? What as the young you were you thinking, I need more pockets for?
Yes. It's a very, very common problem, but I collected marbles as a kid because a friend of my dad's, we were playing some random game and we were finishing up the game and he said, this one's for all the marbles. My little, 6 or 7-year-old brain was like, marbles must be valuable. So I started collecting marbles for I want to say a solid three years. And I just have bucketfuls of them now, which I have no idea what to do with. But at the time, my main concern was transporting them around the house. And I was like, here we go. This is a nice, easy solution.
There was me visioning that you could put in Nerf bullets and stuff in them, but marbles is not what I expected.
Exactly. Very common. I'm sure all the 6 and 7-year-olds listening to this can relate.
Yeah. So is your next invention idea is to come up with better marble stories than buckets?
Yeah. Well, actually, never something that I really, even compared to pocket change, I never got off the ground. But I also had another little idea to insert family photos into marbles, and I called it Heads Will Roll because I thought that could be a little.
Brilliant.
Obviously, to roll around the room is great. Teaches kids great lessons.
The heads will roll. That is deceptively clever. I like that idea. So
not bad for a 6-year-old. Not bad for a 6-year-old.
No. Where did you find out you're dyslexic? Was it the fact because your mum and dad knew they were like, this is a pretty good certainty here, just got you tested from the moment they could, or did you start school and did it come in?
Basically, so my mom knew she was dyslexic. My dad knew he was dyslexic. And so they kind of assumed that, we're going to have a purebred here. But obviously, you can't say to the school system, this guy is dyslexic.
No.
So once I think I was in probably about 2nd or 3rd grade, where, I went, the 2.5-hour drive out to the one little office and spent 2 days there just answering yes or no questions. And I got the little certification. And so that's when I knew I was officially dyslexic, but we knew from the get-go.
Yeah. I suppose with genetics, that working out like that, it was a high probability, wasn't there? Now, I'm obviously British and you're obviously very American.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about the American school system. So how does, in your experience, the American school system treat young dyslexics?
So I'm extremely, extremely lucky because I went to a private school with a, dyslexic certificate and my parents to back me up.
Yeah.
So I've had like about the best experience possible for any dyslexic. And even then I struggled, but far less than what I would have otherwise. But I also know that like in public schools, people who aren't diagnosed with dyslexia, it really goes downhill. And so like, if I had the perfect situation and I still struggled, I still had teachers who would like call me out for it. Or, I had one particularly bad example where a teacher took my essay that I had worked very hard on, projected up in front of the class and had everybody come and correct it. Like if that happened to me in the perfect scenario, you can't even imagine what's going on for these, these little kids in the public school system. It's terrible to think about. And that's why I do what I do.
Yeah. So I remember you telling this story. You spoke at a keynote speaker at the dyslexia show, and this story about the teacher putting it up on the screen. And I remember cringing all the way through it because I've had similar experiences. Now, it's horrid, isn't it? Like you're at the best case education, privately educated, you're dyslexic, and the teacher still feels, because surely they go, it's Bodhi's report is the lowest here. We won't put that up on the screen. We'll do somebody else if we're going to do this exercise. But they just carry on regardless. Is that just?
Yeah. So I mean, it was very, very tough for me. It was like not a substitute teacher. It was a teacher who was a teacher in training.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
One thing that I found was absolutely crazy that I found out like well after the fact, like a year after, but that teacher had actually worked at a dyslexic specific school before coming to ours. Oof. And I was like, well, that first of all is insane. But
yeah.
Day one, I never really got along with this teacher. We never like butted heads, but I wasn't her favorite student and she wasn't my favorite teacher. It was never like a good grouping. But anyway, I told her that I was dyslexic from day one, and she was well aware of that. And then I also later found out that she worked at a dyslexic-friendly school. But anyway, yeah. So one day we were working like just a normal homework assignment, write a paragraph about X, Y, or Z, whatever it was. Next day we come in, she's like, quite a few of those essays didn't quite meet the standards of whatever we're trying to learn properly, like commas or whatever. This was in 5th grade, by the way. And so she was like, we're going to have everybody redo it. Okay. I redo it. I'm like, I'm kind of looking around the class. I'm like, okay, I can imagine who this is. I've got okay.
Yeah, who's skewed the average?
I'll redo it for you. I'll redo it for you. You better not mess this up again. And exactly. So it came in the next day, end of day. We come in, blinds are down, which is, we're going to be doing something on the projector, which is always exhausting and boring. But anyway, we walk in, and she turns it on, and she projects up this essay of somebody in the class. And she blinked out the name, which is nice, but it's not all that good, because as I start reading down, I immediately recognize that it was mine. And then she, goes up to the whiteboard, holds up a marker and says, who can correct something? And everybody's hands just right up. That was delightful. That was particularly difficult for me.
It's gross.
Yeah. But, everybody has to have those experiences, and I've had others, but I count myself very, very lucky compared to it. I've had, plenty of different, what's the word for it? When you have something that can make it slightly easier, like a reading iPad or whatever it is.
Assistive technology.
Assistive, helping hands, etc. I've been very lucky, and I've, gotten through I think some of the hardest bit of the school system, especially now that I'm homeschooled. I really do have full control. But yeah, it's something that's absolutely horrid, and I'm glad that I can give back in some way.
Yeah. So obviously that's a horrible experience. And I think any dyslexic person listening to this probably, like I was when I first heard it, cowering, because they will have similar experiences. How do you possibly, after that kind of thing, not have your confidence completely shot to pieces and never want to write an essay ever again?
Yes. It's definitely an emotion that goes through you.
Yeah.
Luckily, again, huge. I was very, very lucky to have two dyslexic parents who could completely like talk with me about it, go through the steps and be like, this is what sometimes happens, and kind of going into it the next time with an open mind. But I definitely lost all respect for that teacher, and that's happened with other teachers. Just I lose respect, and the rest of the work that they get is, a fraction of what they could be. But so it's kind of my like, okay, I was respecting you, you were respecting me, and now that's gone. But anyway. So now I definitely, I've got a really, really great ELA teacher who I'm really grateful for and has changed my whole narrative around writing and essays greatly. And I'm super, super grateful for her. But it's definitely something that's super difficult. And I'm just, again, extremely lucky to have my parents who could kind of talk me through it, give me advice, and just kind of be there to give me a big old hug when I got home. So
yes, I imagine you've needed a humongous hug off the back of that one, I would have thought.
Not my best.
No. How are your parents helping and coach you through it? I think we're sort of the origin of NoticeAbility. We'll go through with your dad quite a lot next week, but feel free to add your own bit into it. But how are they helping you through, and what sort of tools are you then using? I assume your parents have mainly introduced you to most of it.
Yeah, I mean, and the biggest one was by all means talking about the advantages of dyslexia, and that's what NoticeAbility does. So clearly, we made a good choice there.
Yes.
But I think knowing what the advantages were and having that self-confidence outside of school is huge. So there was one helpful metaphor that my dad gave me when I was very young, which was, at that point, I really hated broccoli. So he was like, the whole school system is going to be broccoli for you, Bodhi. Yeah, exactly. But the second you get out of that, you get to go and just enjoy cake for the rest of your days. Whereas your classmates are breezing through this whole school thing and eating cake all through the whole school system. And then when they get into the real world, they get hit with this huge thing of shock, this huge wave of shock.
Broccoli.
They're eating broccoli for the rest of their life. Exactly. So whenever I was kind of feeling down, I was like, just have to get through this. Just have to get through the broccoli, finish my greens, get to the cake. And so that was a huge, that's always something that I've kind of reflected back on whenever I'm having a hard time, is like, I'm so upset right now, but I know if I can get through it, it's going to be so much better on the other side. The only time that grass is greener on the other side is when you're dyslexic. So there we go.
Yes. The metaphor is really good. I like the idea that school is almost like doing the training level on extreme mode. And then maybe you're not dyslexic, you've got it on average difficulty. But of course, you're so used to being on extreme mode that when it goes down to average difficulty, you're like, hey, this work stuff is not so bad, providing you find a thing you love and it suits your strengths, obviously. So now you're being homeschooled, and you're also being homeschooled while moving around the world. How are you finding that experience versus being in the school system?
Yeah, no. So homeschooling has been absolutely incredible. I've been able to see all sorts of parts of the world, which has been absolutely eye-opening and fantastic. I've been able to meet incredible people, yourself included.
Thank you.
And it's just been absolutely lovely to kind of have that experience. The one thing I definitely do miss is the social aspect of everything, because I've learned how to speed run friends. Is the way I've been talking about it. Like, I meet somebody in the beginning of the week, and I know them very well by the end of the week, by which time I'm gone. So
right, yes.
It's definitely been a little bit tough in the social aspect, but luckily I can still communicate with friends back home and all that, which is great. But that's the one thing I've been missing. As for the actual schooling aspect of homeschooling, or globe schooling as we're coining it, it's a good name. My mom gets credit for that one. I've got 4 different kind of programs / teachers that I work through. I've got one teacher for social studies, one teacher for ELA. The one that I was mentioning has been really helpful in looking at writing in a different way, in a more enjoyable way. A math teacher who I've only recently started a new program with, and a science program who is, basically all ones and zeros, but has a teacher that you can like office hours with if you need to.
Okay.
But otherwise, I just Zoom with all of them 2 to 3 times a week, and they give me homework and such to work on. And then, I get to do fun stuff like go surf after this. So, it's a big win-win in that situation. Are they dyslexia trained? And they're not necessarily. Well, my math tutor, he works at a dyslexic specific school, who's very, very cool, and quite the rhyme. And but everybody else, it's not. They all know that I'm dyslexic, and they obviously talk with my parents quite a bit. So they've got a good collaboration in that. They've got good collaboration there, but they're not necessarily like dyslexia trained. They just know me as a student, and they know what I can handle and what I can't, and that's what they task me with.
How are you finding like the concentration aspect? Because some people with neurodiversity kind of like being in the same place at the time and setting up their own routine. How are you finding that with bouncing from different hotel rooms? Is that something you just kind of roll with?
Yeah, I mean, the one nice thing that I've really been enjoying is there's no kind of like, okay, now I've got to drive to this school place. It's roll out of bed and start working. Especially when I'm sleeping on the couch, as my parents often make me do, is I just sit upright and then I'm actually in my workspace. So that's one thing that I've really enjoyed, is I don't have to like get all pristine except for my Zooms. But it's honestly, I've worked out kind of enough of a strategy, like, okay, kind of big blocks: wake up, get ready, eat breakfast, this subject, that subject, meeting, this subject, that subject, go enjoy myself and dinner.
Yeah.
And then
nice.
Time to go to sleep. So I've been able to create a loose enough schedule that I still feel like I've got a plan, but it's wiggly enough that it can change place to place without like completely reforming, which has been nice.
It's a great skill for you, actually, to be able to think agilely and cope with the sort of fluid environment. That's a great thing for you, sort of in terms of your own personal development.
And then I've also gotten very good at time zones, which has been very difficult.
I can imagine.
I've got to reschedule like every other week.
I can imagine.
Which is like, because they've got other people as well. But no, it's really terrific. And there was one other thing I wanted to mention, and that was, it's, that's been really terrific. And the one other thing that is really nice is this is really preparing me for things like college and the actual workforce, because it's not like, okay, everybody sit down at your desks, work for an hour, get this thing churned out, leave, next time, sit down an hour. I've really had to be like, okay, how am I going to balance work, pleasure, schooling, and all these different aspects? And it's been difficult by all means. And there's definitely been weeks that I've been like going and partying way too much in my work stuff. But then there are other weeks that I way overwork myself. But finding that balance has been something that not that I find very helpful right now, but I know that my future self will enjoy. So
yes, I think so. I think so. It's really interesting hearing how actually I hadn't even thought of that about homeschooling, that you're not literally getting up and doing an hour of this, an hour of that. The whole structure is completely different.
Yeah, it's really, really good, which I love a lot.
Yeah, yes. Hopefully it's the best place for you to thrive. Is there any particular dyslexia-friendly tools you are using during your schooling at the minute?
Well, dyslexia life hacks, y'all.
Of course.
Some little simple ones. I mean, one thing that my teachers hate, but I love, is just to keep everything in my brain, which never results in the best thing. But honestly, it's the way I work the best. I use one homework app called like My Homework. I don't know what it's actually called, but I think it's called My Homework, which I like, and that's been nice. And then also on the topic of time zones, I also use something called Time Buddy, which is really simple and easy to use, that allows me to be like, oh, that time is, Fairbanks and Morocco is this and that, whatever.
Yes.
So, those two have been really helpful. Obviously Zoom, because that's how I meet with all my teachers.
Yes.
Teaching textbooks, which is where I did my math last year, not this year as much, or not for the first semester of this year. Teaching textbooks was nice. Laurel Springs is how I do my science and maybe my social studies next year, but I don't know about that. And is there any other ones? I think those are the main programs.
Do you use any speech to text or any of that kind of stuff?
I use the really simple Google one.
Do you? Right.
I re-keybinded mine to be like Command Shift S and Command S. So I think my brain knows, my muscles know how to do it, but I don't remember which one is which. But I made it so Command Shift S is read what I just highlighted back to me, and Command S is let me type what I'm saying. These are like simple macros that you can do in system preferences on a Mac, which I find very helpful. Oh yeah, that's a good mention. I sometimes I don't think about those simple things that I use.
Yes.
And then my teachers assign everything through Google Classroom, which honestly mine doesn't work the best through, but some people's do. And when like people organize it in different ways, like my social studies and my ELA both go through Google Classroom, but the way they're organized are completely different. But I love one, and I'm a little bit like confused by the other. So, it's all about how you customize it within the app.
Oh yes. Okay. Cool. Now I'm going to move on to your work with NoticeAbility and your kind of round the world trip you're currently doing at the moment.
Yeah. Not a bad way to grow up, eh?
No, not at all. Not a bad way of growing up at all. Like I'm going to do some schoolwork, then surfing. That sounds like a good idea.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. The swell's picking up right now. I gotta go.
Of course. But how did I'm going to ask how you got involved with NoticeAbility? I know the fact that your parents founded it, and you are the inspiration for it. But at what point did they think we're going to bring Bodhi on board to start doing the youth talking?
Yeah, so exactly. My dad created it when I think he started creating it right around when I was 6, because that was the whole inspiration. Pocket change was the inspiration. And then he developed it with Harvard and MIT, and I think it probably kind of hit the masses by the time I was 10. Or maybe sooner, maybe more like 8 or 9. And I didn't really do a lot for NoticeAbility specifically, other than, like sell hats on the side of the road and whatever little things that I could do. But I didn't do anything huge until I think the summer of the year I was turning, so I guess it was early. I guess it was like 8, because my dad was doing a big swim around the island of Martha's Vineyard, and he wanted to kind of bring attention towards that. And so when we were in Leland, we invited like a bunch of friends and friends of friends over, and he did some talking. And then he also brought little old 7 or 8-year-old me. And I look back on that and I cringe incredibly hard, but that was the first time I ever publicly spoke. And so then from that, kind of slowed down. I think I did 1 or 2 more of those. And then when I was turning 11, we went to Amsterdam, which was the land of many firsts for me. And one of those firsts was public speaking, which was, and I did that with the Hoy Foundation. And that was really terrific. That was like kind of the first time I got up on stage and I really presented. And from there, just really took off, because then I started actually like doing, like when my dad is going and doing a talk, I'm doing the talk with him. And as we've grown, like now we're much more 50-50 with our talks and our workshops with how much we're teaching it. And the last 2 years have been the most heavily, like I've grown the most in NoticeAbility. And so like from 13, I was doing, just like that, a couple talks every year. And then I hit 13. I hit 13 and a half, 14. And I started doing talks or workshops every week. And I just started doing more and more and having more and more of a part of those. And it's been really terrific. And it's, allowed me to earn my keep traveling around the world. So again.
So you've been traveling around the world for nearly 2 years now doing this?
We were planning to make it 2 years as of, this summer. But of course, quarantine and COVID got totally in our way.
Of course.
So we left our state of, Cambridge, of Massachusetts. Sorry. State.
Yeah.
I know my geography. I didn't miss that class today. Yeah. So anyway, we went to Maine in the start of COVID. That was nice, but we didn't do any kind of really noticeability work other than Zooms and like workshops online, which was great. I was able to kind of, at that point, I was like a student mentor, not a teacher yet. I was like a miniature version of a teacher. And so that was really nice. I also did some courses myself with some older kids. And then COVID kind of started to go down, and we went to a place that we'd visited only briefly before, the island of Bonaire in the Dutch Caribbean. And now I expect everybody listening to know exactly where that is. So really well known, huge place. Anyway, it's like not a lot of people know, but it's part of the ABC Islands, including Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire. Yeah. And we went out there, and we were out there for 3 months, which was really great. I learned how to play water polo, and then I fractured my vertebrae playing water polo, which is delightful. And that's a story of its own. But anyway, it was really great. Got to have some good friends and did. I think we did like one class out there. It wasn't extreme. Summer came along. Didn't do much over summer because that's my time to relax. And then we just hopped right into it. For Bonaire, we went back to Bonaire where we did, I think, another course, and then we really got into it this last semester, going from Portugal to Austria to the UK, both like down below, and like England and Switzerland, and then we went over to not Switzerland. Oh my gosh,
Scotland.
I've made that far too many times. Scotland. Thank
Scotland,
you.
Yeah.
Then we went back to the Netherlands, where we went around quite a bit. And now we're here in, Africa, Morocco first, then Malta, then Egypt. And then I need to check my calendar. So we'll find out.
Wow. So I've obviously seen you keynote speak, and it's really great, the interplay between yourself and your dad, who fills in part of it, and then your dad comes in, or back and forth. And you are really good at, particularly your talk, when you're the focus of it, of pulling children out of the audience, getting them involved. What is the other part do you do for them? Because you keep mentioning that you do some training sessions as well. What's that involved?
So we do workshops and we do talks. And talks are tons and tons of fun for me because I love being the center of attention.
I wouldn't have noticed.
No, not super low key. My head can barely fit in the frame of this Zoom thing. No, but anyway, I really enjoy those. But then we also get to do these really fun workshops where recently we've been able to do them physically, but before that it was on Zoom, and we take a good number is usually around 12 so that we can split them into 3 groups of 4. And we take them through a very summarized version of our course where we kind of give them a taste of what they would experience if they went through the NoticeAbility program. And it's been really, really lovely because you get to see just these little minds come up with really, really interesting ideas that you would never have normally thought of. So it's a lot of fun. And then I also sometimes you'll find some older kids like 13 or 14 in those, and I get to be after. I'm like, I'm no longer a teacher. Where's the party tonight? So that's been nice. And so workshops and talks are our main thing. And then sometimes there are also kind of strange, interesting requests that like they didn't want me as much, which I was very hurt about. No, but my dad went and did like a podcast interview live for a Formula One facility.
Oh, wow.
Which was cool. Like, okay.
That is kind of cool.
And then, sometimes we get like wonderful offers to do podcasts like this, or different like in-person, gatherings. Like we're really flexible as long as it's around, noticeability and dyslexia. So
yes. So the last sort of thing I kind of want to catch you on with the going around the world and noticeability. I'm struggling to say that without putting disability in there. Noticeability.
All good. It's a great, for anybody who didn't catch it, it's like a great double entendre. If you notice ability, you see and know disability.
Ability, yes.
If you pronounce it the other way, that's okay. We intentionally impossible to mispronounce. There it is.
Yes. It's a really clever wordplay. I was thinking, obviously, you're going around talking to dyslexics from different countries about their dyslexia and your experience with it, and you're obviously getting things from them. How has it helped you grow, particularly as a dyslexic person? How has it made you reframe your own dyslexia and maybe picked up some more strategies along the way?
Well, it's been really great. Like we talk with parents, we talk with kids, and it's like we hear the struggles that we always hear, and we also hear really unique solutions. Like the one thing that we love to do, especially when it's like on a smaller level, is, and it's like not for like a keynote, so this is why you didn't see us do it, but what we love to do is we love to start the conversation and tell everybody what we do and everything about ourselves. And then we kind of just let all the parents or all the kids talk to one another. And it just kind of pinballs around the room like, hey, my kid has been struggling with this. Oh my gosh, my kid has too. And we found this thing really helpful. Or, come check out Dyslexia Life Hacks. Or no, I'm joking. But, it's really wonderful. And I've seen people going through the exact same thing that I have, and I've tried to be there for them. But I think the biggest thing is with a neuro difference, you can't recognize it. You don't walk down the street and you're like, oh, hey, that person has a neuro difference and that person has a neuro difference. Why am I blanking on the actual word?
Diversity.
Thank you. I don't know why I was blanking on that. Neurodiversity. That person has a neurodiversity. That person has a neurodiversity. And so I've been very lucky to like kind of travel around the world and see all these, really cool people and know about dyslexia and be able to kind of like see that in others. But really the biggest thing about noticeability is just making sure kids don't feel alone. Like they're not struggling. This is not their own struggle. It's like a common thing and something that we can work with to create a better future. And so really bringing in all sorts of different people from around the world and saying, yes, we're all dyslexic and we're all great. And like, if you just scroll through my like contacts list, you just see people from all around the world, and, a good, more, like I would say like 75% of them are dyslexic, and it's just really great to see. Also a little shameless plug, NoticeAbility.org. There's, shirts that say dyslexic before it was cool, which I absolutely love. And then you can actually notice people walking down the street. It's been really funny because we wear hats or shirts sometimes that say dyslexic before it was cool. And we'll be like, somebody's like, oh, cool shirt. And we're like, are you one of us? And they're like, yeah, like, welcome to the brotherhood. You found the right people. So
I like that. I think people should go over, and I like the idea dyslexic before it was cool.
Good one. We'll send you a shirt. Now you've got that on recording. You can send that little audio clip to my dad. He'll send one. I promise.
Peer pressure and everything.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to start rounding the podcast out now. Now, what I do is I have 3 rapid fire questions I ask all guests that come on the podcast. You need to make a deal with me that you won't tell your dad what they are, so I get his honest reaction next time I record with him. So these are rapid fire from me, but they don't need short answers from you. So let's go with the first one. What prejudice did you have about dyslexia that has been proven wrong?
Prejudice against dyslexia?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the biggest thing that I always kind of felt about dyslexia, was reading, writing, spelling is never going to be something that I'm going to actually be able to do properly. And that's one that I just, with a lot of remediation, has been proven wrong. I'm still a terrible speller, but I can read and write, not beautifully, but way better than I ever thought I would be able to, and to a point that I'm, proud of. So I think that's a big one that I'm glad I was wrong about.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think that's really cool. It's a thing you can hang on to too long. Like, I just can't spell, and really, you can find better ways of getting around that. Okay, rapid fire question number 2. If an alien landed and you had to describe dyslexia to them, how would you do it?
In like one word, or how long do I have with this alien?
As long as you like.
Okay. Dyslexia is a difference in the way the brain operates, which makes things like reading, writing, spelling more difficult. But it also allows us to see the world in a different and more interesting / helpful way. Things like material reasoning, narrative reasoning, interconnected reasoning, and dynamic reasoning are dyslexics are particularly strong with, which is something that robots and computer programs can never replicate. Mm-hmm. So the dyslexic mind is something that is going to be able to live on and continue to bring new, interesting ideas to the world.
Cool. That's a really cool answer. That's a very, very intelligent answer for that. Thank you. Okay. And the last question of the podcast, and seeing as this is the Dyslexia Life Hacks show, what is your favorite dyslexia life hack?
I need to look through your website more. I've perused it. But my personal favorite dyslexia life hack, honestly, it's got to be that text to speech, being able to go just Command-Shift-S and talk. Sure, it makes so many different kinds of errors. And when I read it back, it's like the pumpkin went to the ball after the blanket fell off the couch. I'm like, that's not at all what I said. I was talking about the Third World War, but okay, sure. But anyway, other than that, it's been really helpful just to be able to all of my ideas, because as I was saying, narrative reasoning is a huge dyslexic strength and one that I identify with particularly. And so the ability to speak, although my teachers don't like sometimes how I speak and my writing convey, because it's a little bit too talkative, but
yes, yeah.
I can still talk into my computer, add in some periods, commas with my voice, and then go back and read it through. And it's just the editing process. It's not like, idea typing and I've lost the idea before I've spelled the first word. So yes. That's been my favorite. That's been my personal favorite, I think.
You should dive on the website and read a hack called Write Fast, Write Bad, Write Wrong. I think you'll find that describes exactly what you're doing with. Okay, Bodhi. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time on to come and talk to me today on this episode. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we sign off?
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been absolutely wonderful. And of course, I've got to add in the little shameless plug at the end.
Of course.
Definitely check out Dyslexia Life Hacks and NoticeAbility. We got cool programs, talks, and hey, if you ever want us to come to and do a talk with you or with someone, as long as you're in a cool place in the world, let's join. So,
cool.
Check us out. But thank you so much for having me.
No worries. And I want to remind everybody that Bodhi's dad, Dean, is on the next episode where we're going to delve more into NoticeAbility. So stay tuned for that one. I want to thank Bodhi for taking the time, and I want to thank everybody else for listening to this podcast. I will see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye for now.
Cheers, y'all.